The ultimate dream is financial independence, where you get to control what you do, when you do it, and how you do it. And while we talked about how you can become financially independent, the big question comes up of, well, what if I don't make a lot of money? What do I do? Could I ever become financially independent? Well, I have two scenarios to share with you in today's video of two different people. Both don't really have a whole lot of money to invest to build up to that financial independence. So we're going to explore how they can achieve financial independence despite their financial problem. Now, person number one, they make good money. But here's the problem with them. They have a lot of expenses. They spend a lot of money, and they're ultimately your standard American. Person number two, though, they don't make a lot of money, and so they can't overspend. They just don't make a lot of money. So how can both of these people achieve financial independence? So we're going to start with person number one, scenario number one. Here are the details. They have an annual household income of $120,000 a year. They have two cars. Their monthly car payment total is $978.95 for both cars. Their monthly mortgage payment comes out to $2,150. Their credit card payments are $560 a month. That does include interest, because what they do is they basically spend down their credit card, and then the next month comes around and they spend up, but they try to keep that $560 paid out every month to keep them from maxing out their credit cards. Other expenses such as, your standard TV, internet, cell phone service, electric, and things like that, like your utilities, comes out to a total of $500 a month. And then groceries and dining out each month equal $900 a month for that family of three. So they're going to get paid every week at a total take-home pay of $1,717.65. And that's because, benefits are taken out of, and they live in Virginia, so they also pay state tax on top of their federal tax, as you see right here. Now, right now, they invest absolutely nothing. They have no retirement account, no taxable brokerage account, absolutely nothing saved for the future. So let's calculate what can possibly happen in this story, given that nothing else changes, given that they don't reduce their expenses and they don't make more money. They're just going to stay at $120,000 a year. Calculating that weekly into the monthly take-home pay is $7,443.15. There's their car payment, mortgage, credit cards, expense, and groceries that we just talked about. That means once you calculate all that stuff out, they're left over with $2,354.20. But here's the thing, they told me they don't actually follow a written budget. So they explained that they usually do some traveling, or they buy some extra things, they go out and they go to the movies, they go to a bar, things like that. And they probably are, at the end of the month, left over with absolutely nothing. So where that extra $2,300 goes, we don't know. So I'm going to figure in another $1,000 into an expense for that kind of random stuff, which still gives them $1,300 a month to invest for their financial independence. Now, of course, following the pathways to FI, the first thing you're going to want to do is invest it into a tax-advantaged account. So that's something like a Roth IRA or something like a 401k. Anything like that gives you benefits on tax, that's where we're going to start. And then here's where things get very tricky for this scenario number one. I asked them, how much money do you think you're going to want to spend in retirement? Let's say you have the goal to retire early, 40s, 50s, something like that. So you're 45, you're 48, you're 52, and you retire early. How much money do you want? And they said they want to spend $10,000 a month. They want to go on some great vacations. They want to live their best life, but they have nothing invested yet. Is there any hope? So if they only have $1,300 a month to invest, if we figure a 10% rate of return, given the average return of the S&P 500 over the last 100 years, at $1,300 a month in 20 years from now, they'd have a total of $933,737 in their portfolio. They're almost a millionaire, but not really. If I plug in that $933,000, and then I'm going to change this rule, instead of the 4% rule, we're going to say that they want to take out $120,000 a year, which actually equals that $10,000 a month. You're going to see that things don't look too hot. If we follow this down, let's say they retire at the age of 40, which means they would have to start investing in this at the age of 20, which is at this point, I think, unlikely. But by the time they hit 56 years old, with trying to withdraw $10,000 a month, they're going to run out of money. You can see it goes into the negative right here. So if they live to the age of 70, 80, 90, they're absolutely screwed and going back to work. So how do they become financially independent with the little amount of money that they can spend? Because on the 4% rule, as you can see right here, to maintain at least some sanity and let their portfolio work for them. Well, here's a couple steps in this particular scenario. Number one is they're going to have to lower their expenses. At the end of the day, that's what they're going to have to do. So, and they can do this today, right now. Sort out the car payment. So if you're able to reduce your car payment by, let's say, you bring that down to only $400 a month, and then they cut their credit card expense, they'd have another $1,138 a month to combine with that $1,300 and invest that. And then after 20 years, they'd actually have $1.7 million to retire on. Now, the second thing that they could do, though, is lower their expense in retirement. See, do they really need $10,000 a month when they retire? Let's say they don't retire for another 10, 20, 30 years. Will you need everything you need today? Do you think you're still going to have a mortgage payment? I mean, that mortgage payment's kind of high, $2,000. By then, will the mortgage be paid off? Will you need to have the car payment? Will you need to do all these different things? See, even though you want to travel, you can actually still do all those things, but you don't need all that extra overhead money. So therefore, you can actually live off of maybe $5,000 a month or $6,000 a month instead of $10,000 a month. If you really want that freedom that we aim for in financial independence, and you have less than the 20 years that we simulated in this particular scenario, you're going to have to get to work. But see, that's the beauty of financial independence. It can be tailored to whatever your financial situation is. It doesn't just suit one person, it can suit anybody. But you're going to have to make some very wise, calculated decisions, and it all depends on how much you really want the freedom. Not all is lost, but maybe you're more like person number 2. So let's hop to that. Person number 2, scenario number 2, and this person just doesn't make a lot of money. So they're married with 2 kids, so they got a family of 4, and their household income is only $65,000 a year. They also live in California. Now, California has one of the highest state taxes in all of US, which means their take-home pay per week is only $928.83 or $4,024 a month, as you see right here. Now, their car payments are only $300 a month. The rent payment is actually very good considering it's California. It's only $1,500 a month. I don't know if they're living in a studio or if they have a bigger place, but that's a really good price for California rent. And expenses such as groceries and food equal $900 a month. And their other expenses, electric, utilities, etc., that means that they only have $724 left over at the end of the month. But they are worried about their car insurance. They have the car insurance that comes up every 6 months. They have these really random things that can happen, like maybe they need new tires or the oil change. They come out and say that they need some other thing done to the car and that costs money. So they are a little bit sensitive and worried about that. And they like to kind of keep a little bit of cash aside for an emergency fund, which makes a whole lot of sense. That's a good thing to do. So we talked about something like $300 a month. You save that in cash for those scary pop-up costs that can sometimes happen and catch you by surprise. And that leaves them with a total of $425 a month to invest. Now, using the same calculations as we did earlier with person number 1, at $425 a month after 20 years at 10%, their portfolio would be sitting at $305,260. And quite frankly, this is on par and average for an American household. So if you're feeling like, oh gosh, that doesn't seem like a lot of money, it doesn't mean that that's bad. That's average. If you're above that, give yourself a pat on the back. But here's how they can become financially independent despite their low situation on their portfolio. You have to be real with yourself. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and fluff things up for you. As Dave Ramsey says, you need to act your wage. And boy, is that ever accurate. And it's a tough pill to swallow because, you need to be motivated and focused. And the right motivated and focused people watching this video will find massive value and get to work today. But you have to weigh and judge what life means to you. Sometimes you got to live minimal when you're faced with this particular situation, or you're going to have to go and find another job that pays more money somehow, some way, or pick up another 5 side hustles in order to make more money that you can invest today to build up to your ultimate dream, financial independence. And you got to stop buying things that you don't really want just to impress a bunch of a-holes that you don't really even like. And I'll be honest with you, I bought an Audi when I got promoted at my last job. And I thought, this is cool. I want to look like, all the bigwigs, an Audi. And I thought, how stupid is this that I spent all this money on this thing and it became a money trap. I had all these issues with it. And every time I took it into the dealership, another $1,000 would have to be spent on fixing up the car. So I traded it in for a Honda Accord and I could not be happier. The car is paid off, and the thing's probably going to run until it hits like 300,000 miles, knowing how Hondas work. And that, I realized, will get me closer to freedom, which I value much more than what people think about me. So if we come over here to the FI calculator and we plug in that 305 to 80, that's where you're going to have to be real with yourself. Let's say you are able to retire at the age of 40. Heck, we'll put 50 in here. Why not? So there you are at the age of 50 at a $305,000 balance. At a 4% rule, you're going to be able to withdraw $1,000 a month. And that's where you need to get real with yourself. And you need to decide, okay, I want that freedom. I don't want to get another job. I'm going to stick to $65,000 household income. And that is what it is. So with the small amount of money that you invested over that course of 20 years, this is what you got to live off of. Now, there's a couple things you can do. Let's go over those steps right now. First, find a cheaper place that can lower that rent that you're still comfortable with. And if you still live in California, it might be a little bit difficult, but there's got to be something out there that, of course, you don't want to be living somewhere sketchy, right? You want to go somewhere nice that you can still afford and be comfortable with, but it costs less than it does today. That way, as you're living off of this smaller amount, you can feel good about it. But number two, and this is where a lot of FI people end up, is they do geo arbitrage. And this is what's really cool about it. Believe it or not, you can move to somewhere like Costa Rica or Portugal and pay significantly less money to have an even more lavish lifestyle than you do today in the United States. And in fact, healthcare itself costs a lot less money than it does in the United States. So if you're okay living in another country, and by the way, Costa Rica can be very beautiful depending on where you live, that could be a way to consider, hey, I'm not tied down to this state. I'm not tied down to this area. I'm going to move out to save myself money and let my $1,000 a month go even further. And then my portfolio, man, that could last forever. See, for some people, having that Audi, having that BMW is what they value. But for other people, they just want simplicity. They want a great life. And it doesn't matter who you are in a scenario. Each scenario can be successful, but it all depends on making the sacrifices now so you can get to the freedom. You gotta want freedom more than anything else. Two different people, two different cost profiles, and you can find the richness in life. Subscribe for more financially independent videos. Check out this video next, and we'll see you on the next video.